This is part 2 of a 3-part series. Links to part 1 and part 3 are in the video description. Today, in part 2 of a 3-part series, I will share 19 items from my thorough list of 57 autistic characteristics and traits of mine, including many aspects of my social anxiety. Let's get started. Hey, Define Yourselfers, I am Chris Mitchell from theconfidentautistic.com. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I am an autistic adult, late diagnosed, an advocate for autistic adults, and a digital creator empowering other autistic adults and the entire world to embrace autism. Now, if this resonates with you, please consider subscribing to this channel. When you do subscribe, do not forget to ring the bell to be notified of new videos and when I go live. In part 1 of this video series, I shared why you should create your own list of autistic traits, along with many of my own stems and sensory sensitivities and more. Now, one thing that is really hard for me is I battle social anxiety. And there's many ways that this kind of shows up in my life. It causes me a lot of social anxiety when I have to go to other people's homes and visit them for a while. And I am so anxious and uncomfortable and feel like I got a mask and it's not my own environment. It drives me batty. So I don't visit too many people's homes. Having guests in my homes, oh my gosh, I don't normally have people over here in my house, okay? And not just because, the clutter or whatever. We're not the best housekeepers. We could be better, we could be worse. I'll admit that. But having people in my home and having to entertain them is so hard for me because I feel like I have to constantly be on and put on a show. And often people over here, and they've been here for about 30, 45 minutes, I'm thinking, when are you going to leave? There was a scene in the very first episode of the reboot of Night Court where Abby met Dan Fielding at his apartment, and Dan had, been married. He lost his wife and all, and he's kind of more reclusive and all. And she'd been there for a while, and he said, "How do you tell someone it's time for them to leave?" Or words to that effect. I thought that's what goes through my mind when people are here. And there was the episode of the Goldbergs when Murray was still on that show. Unfortunate what happened with the actor who played Murray, but we won't go into that. And he does not like a lot of people around him either in his home. And he looked at his wife Beverly, and said, "It's dark. There's people in my house. I don't like this." That's what goes through my mind when people are in my house. I'm very uncomfortable with people in my house. I don't know how to entertain. I don't know how to interact with them. I can do short little bursts and all. And I like, if I'm going to meet people, I don't mind meeting them like at a restaurant or a pizza parlor, because then when I'm done, I can get up and leave. When they're at my house, it's kind of rude if you invite someone over and then when they're over here for half an hour and then say, "Get out." That's not kind of a nice, polite thing to do. Group activities cause me anxiety. I've always hated group activities. They just drive me batty. Not good at them because it's interacting with people. It's not my thing. Starting conversations with new people. I don't generally walk up to somebody in public and say, "Oh, wow, that's a cute dog you have with you. What breed is it?" I don't do those things because then that encourages a conversation. And then I'm lost after that first opening night. "Oh, okay, it's a poodle. Thanks for letting me know. Bye." But then people expect you to talk more and drive me batty. And speaking of wanting to talk more, small talk. Oh my gosh, I don't know if this is one of your issues. If it is, tell me about it in the comments or in the community conversation. Oh, small talk. I did. It drives me batty. I don't know how to do it. I think it's pointless because a lot of people say, "Well, small talk." You say things like, "Hey, it's kind of warm outside, isn't it?" Or, "Hey, today's Friday." I don't see the point in telling somebody something they already know. And it's pointless. And when people say those things to me in an attempt for small talk, I have to remind myself this is what autistics do. They like small talk. So when someone says, "Yeah, it's kind of hot outside," I want to say, "Well, that would explain why I'm sweating." I oh, and being kind of rude and snotty that way. I don't like eye contact at all. I don't make it. Now, when you're watching this video, you might be thinking, Chris, I find that hard to believe. You're making great eye contact with the camera. And there's a reason why. Because it's a camera. Okay? If it's a real person, I look around, look down, fiddle with stuff. I do not make eye contact. And what's even worse is when someone forces eye contact on me. I don't like that at all. And don't even get me started on social media. Social media causes me anxiety because there's so much on it. It's overstimuli. It's just too much for me. And then I don't know how, I have enough trouble interacting with people in real life. On social media, it's even worse. I don't understand any of the social niceties of interacting with people virtually. I'm getting better. I'll admit that, but it's not one of the things I excel at. I struggle with body language. I don't do it. I probably don't do it right. And I don't understand other people's body language. I just don't. Now, the few things that I do get, if you put your hands on your hips and your elbows kind of straight out and kind of look towards me, I know a lecture is coming. I've seen that pose a lot of times in school. Okay. And when somebody crosses their arms like this, that tells me they're a little bit closed off and they're unhappy, angry, and this is someone I don't want to approach. But generally, I did not get a lot of body language. Those are the only two I get because I've been exposed to them so much in my life. I also fear being judged by others because of my autistic quirks. I know I don't do things the autistic's way, and partially I don't care. I'll be honest. But I fear being judged and being ridiculed because, as a kid, you have all that peer pressure. And that's horrible for children. It's even worse today than when I was a kid. And the peer pressure, I mean, you don't fit in, you get ostracized. And I still feel that today because I still don't fit in. I did not learn from all that as my childhood how to assimilate. I, like the Borg, it really does feel that way when you're autistic. I must assimilate to fit into the holistic society. And we shouldn't do that, by the way. And I just don't know how to do it. And I just feel being judged all the time. In school, I preferred to eat alone. Didn't really want to eat with other people at lunch, and not because I'm a messy eater. I'm a little bit of a messy eater. I just, if I ate with other people, there's a conversation, and that caused me anxiety. And during recess, I preferred to either be alone on the playground or stay close to the yard supervisors. Didn't really want to hang out with the other kids because conversations were difficult for me, and all that intricacies of friendships bothered me, which we're going to get to in a moment. I have antisocial behavior. I do have tendencies of that. It's gotten better over the years. I've learned part of it I learned through masking, and part of it I learned that's not appropriate to do. Some things that are not appropriate to do or say, I don't know why they're inappropriate, but I just go with the flow on it. But yeah, I do have some antisocial behaviors. And you could consider this an antisocial behavior. I am blunt. Okay. Now, when I worked in radio, people would call in and ask me, "Are you British?" Now, I don't have a British accent. Maybe I did a moment ago here, but generally speaking, I don't have a British accent. People are crazy. Why do they think I'm British? Then I learned that a lot of people perceive the Brits as being very blunt, which I am. I am very blunt. And I learned to tone that down. And people who meet me for the first time and all, I preface myself and I let them know I can be very blunt. And I don't mean to be rude, but it's just who I am. I mean, I love the movie The Outer Towers. One of my favorite movies. Steve Martin was in it, Goldie Hawn, and John Cleese was in it, among others. But those were the three big names in it that I can think of at this moment. Anyway, John Cleese is a hotel manager, and very kind of he was blunt. Okay, and there was a lady who was working at the counter, and he looked at her and he said, "Is that a new haircut?" And she nodded yes. And he said, "You may want to work in the back for a while." What I admire about the British is they can be blunt, but yet they make it sound so nice and friendly. I love that. Now, I have blurted out inappropriate comments. Now, this is an autistic trait, but I also think it's fueled in my case by my ADHD. Things pop into my mind and they come out of my mouth before I can think them through if they're appropriate. My wife describes me as a person without a filter. So I do blurt out inappropriate comments at times. Not all okay, occasionally some are PG rated, but yeah, I do blurt out inappropriate things at times. I have laughed at inappropriate times. I was with a friend of mine. This really makes me sad now that I look back upon it. And we went out to a pizza place, and I sit on top of his car, a cup of Pepsi. Now, our car is a rendezvous, and the roof is very flat. His car is more curved, and the cup just fell over and spilled Pepsi everywhere. And I just started laughing, and it was not funny. It was disrespectful, and I feel so bad about that. I still do today. But I will laugh at inappropriate times in my life, and that's just one example of that happening in my life. When I get frustrated, especially in a conversation, I often get verbally combative. So if I'm in a conversation with somebody, and either A, I'm done with the conversation, but they want to keep talking to me, or B, I'm not understanding what they're trying to tell me, I will get verbally combative and start arguing with them. Now, in the one, I know it's rude. Okay. You don't have to tell me that. I get it. What I will say about this is this: when I'm in a conversation with somebody and I want to get out of that conversation and I'm not that interested in really having further conversation with them, like a stranger on the street or on the bus, saying something rude does end the conversation, which was my ultimate goal. But it's really not the politest thing to do, to get verbally combative and all, because that sometimes can escalate to a more dangerous situation. Now, I've learned in my life I do better with a support person with me. When I'm out in public and I'm not understanding something, because I do get kind of confused when people talk to me at times. If I get confused or frustrated, like I said, I'll get verbally abusive. If my wife is there with me and she knows about this and my autism, I will look at her and she will break down what they're saying to me and help me comprehend it. And it cuts down the times I get verbally abusive, verbally combative, or having a meltdown and other things that embarrass the heck out of her. Is I struggle interacting with other people. Now, when I was a kid, my mom told me, well, my mom told me this many times as throughout my life, but my mom told me that when I was a kid, when kids came over to ask if I wanted to go out and play, this is like pre-kindergarten, maybe even kindergarten, I would just slam the door in their face, which I know now is rude, but I just did not know how to interact. And they wanted a conversation with me. I didn't know what to say, so I just closed the door. I I use TV growing up. I love TV. I don't care for it now. But as a kid, I watched a lot of TV and I used it to learn social behavior. That was my education, because we say in our community that being autistic is like you're involved in life and everyone got a book on how to to live life, how to act, how to behave, how to do all those things that autistic people do. And we autistics, we didn't get the book, we lost the book, or we don't understand the book. So I use TV to try to teach myself a social behavior. Was not always that effective because things in life are much different than they are on TV. It took me many years to learn that, but I have been through that. So when I'm talking to someone, and to me, I am like doing a comedy bit and interviewing somebody like Letterman would do on his show, a man on the street activity. I would do that. That's how I script. That's how I interact with people. I'm always feeling as if I need to emulate others to conform to fit into our society. Well, maybe not always feel, but I often feel that way. I feel like I got to emulate and like, okay, they're doing this, I should do the same thing. Then we can connect. And then I'm taking cues from them on how to act normal. I feel like I'm acting in social situations, which I kind of just explained a moment ago. But yeah, I do feel that way, that I'm always acting to try to fit in and trying to quickly think, what's my next line? How do I respond to this? What's the normal way of doing this? And that's probably called, well, I think it is called masking. I'm a fawner. Okay, fawning means I'm a people pleaser, and I do that a lot in my life. And mainly I do that to avoid conflict because conflict adds to my social anxiety. I use scripting. Scripting is when you kind of plan out in your mind what you're going to say to somebody. I have scripted so much. I've gotten better, but I've scripted, and I still do script, but I scripted to the point where I would say, okay, I want to ask this person a question. And then I'm going to ask them a question. Then I think of every possible answer they could give to me. Then I think of every response I could have to that. And I would have like 20 different dialogues that we could go through depending on the answer. Then you know what would happen? Go and ask that person a question. They give me answer number 21, the one I had not thought of. And then I'm like, I have to get back to you on that. I got to work on a script. Friendships have always been very difficult for me. Typically, how a friendship goes for me, because I don't understand them. Okay, I don't understand how they develop, how they evolve, how they start. So I wait for someone to want to be friends with me instead of me seeking out friends. So I don't have a lot of friends, but they're very complicated to me. And most of my friendships, I am the older person by 2 years or more. And I think that's because I don't act my age, okay? I don't. I never have. I don't think I ever will. I hang out with younger people. And you don't get any ideas here. Not that younger people, but people a few years younger than me. I'm more comfortable with that, and and, and it just fits me better. And this I discovered is not uncommon within the autism community. Look for links to part 1 and part 3 of this video series in this video's description. Now it's your turn. Share with me what from my list resonated with you. Or if you have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover on an upcoming video, please share it with me as well. You can share it in the conversation in our Facebook group, Autistic Adults Embracing Autism, or by commenting on this video. Now, until next time, I'm Chris Mitchell, the Confident Autistic, reminding you that now is the time for you to embrace your autism.